Hi everybody, it's Saul Sunforge here. I've been asked over the years by players who want to possibly become DMs or people who are interested in Dungeons and Dragons, but they haven't actually, did any playing or DMing yet, but they're kind of interested. Like, how do you how do you start out? You know, whether it's a one shot or a world spanning campaign. How do you start that out exactly? And so I wanted to go ahead and make a video, today about how I start out and how I believe most DMs start out. Um, all right. So back in the day, there wasn't all these computer programs and things like that. I use Incarnate because I do my DMing right now on Roll20. I don't have an in-person group, unfortunately, and that's a different video on my preferences, the pros and cons of both, and things like that. But so let's go ahead and kind of get into the structure of things here. Okay, so we are going to make a small quest chain over like a little basic of a regional map, and then we'll do show you like what should probably be in a starting city based on size category. We'll do a video like that coming up shortly, but today that is not this video. All right, so make it all land first. It was water. Go ahead and make that land, and it looks like it's sand as the default. So we're gonna go ahead and cover that land up with grass. Mostly. And I'm not using this or anything like that in my own campaign. I have most of those things already made or ideas in my head on places they haven't been yet on how I'm gonna make them and things like that. I don't know why this is running so slow today. That's weird. It usually isn't. Of course it would be when I'm trying to make a video for you guys, right? Alright then. If you're going to be stubborn about it, we'll just go ahead and make the cursor bigger. Okay, and we'll leave some of that beach there or something like that. Alright. So what do you want to have the minimum of what you should have for your first session? I'd say you should have a town. All right, so this icon represents an entire town for now. So you know you should have a town. You want to place it on your map, ideally near resources and things like that. Uh, you know, as to them having a reason to be there or prosper. It could be something like, just in the crossroads of intersecting areas leading from different locations. And it was an outpost or something, and, a trading area where caravans would come by, and then they just decided to settle it and eventually turned into a hamlet, and that eventually turned into a village and whatnot. But you want to have your starting town, and then you want to have a dungeon of some sort. And you don't have to fully even flesh out the dungeon if you don't have time for that. You could theater the mind quite a bit. Depends on how you're playing, I suppose. If you're playing on a virtual tabletop or Roll20, then you have to kind of flesh more out. unless your party understands you're doing theater of the mind and things like that. And I actually prefer theater of the mind for a lot of things because it allows you to be more creative. It allows you to be more impromptu. Your improv skills really shine. But let's say it's a cave, okay? So the first dungeon's a cave. There we go. And you don't, I'm going to call it first dungeon. You don't have to. You can actually name it if you wish to. You don't even really need to, though. But you can name it, have a backstory for it, why it exists, who the owners were previously, who they are now, all that kind of stuff. But you don't need that. You don't need that for your first session. There's no need for that. Okay, so starting town. So depending on what type of party you have, your players, if they're big on role play, then you could get away with just this. That should be enough. And focus more on the NPCs in the town. Flesh them out a little bit more. And you can use the video I just created, actually, the previous video in the series, and make some NPCs that they'll want to talk to, and maybe some NPCs that they'll get attached to, and then you notice those things, and so that's how you create your reoccurring NPCs based off of what the player, your perception of who the player's like. But let's say that your players are, mostly combat focused players or exploration players. If they're exploration players, you might want to put an exploration quest out here. The NPC might say, our it could be like our water source is drying up, and we need you to go into the woods and see if the lake, if it's fresh water, if it's drinkable, something simple like that. Okay, so you know you make your, obviously I'm not making this for myself, for my players, but you make the woods, and maybe you have your lake. Clean it up a little bit, even though I'm not going to use this. I still want it to look okay. Don't want any trees in the water unless you're building a swamp biome, which I do happen to love swamp biomes. Okay, so then if they go exploring down there, and you know maybe you might have an encounter or something like that. Maybe you give them like an encounter at the beginning of the woods. Or they can have it. It doesn't even have to be combat. There's an NPC encounter. And maybe they meet like a woodsman, a lumberjack, somebody's over here fishing, maybe even, something like that, and somebody for them to to talk to, maybe give them like a little bit of the layout of, oh, these woods are dangerous. There's owlbears and something like that, and it gives the players a little bit of foreshadowing on what potentially they can encounter there. And you know the that right there. If they have if there's a starting town, which you don't even have to flesh out the entire town. You don't have to. You could just flesh out the starting inn, or wherever they're starting in the town. You met at, the whole you met in a tavern. It's a cliche for a reason. It's because it works. It makes sense, and you could do a whole. There's a lot of versatility off of that kind of start. You could do a whole bunch of things to make it your own. So you have the encounter, a fight, and then the fight's over, and then you go and you meet an NPC. He tells you a little bit about the surrounding areas. Uh, you know, there's mountains to the west. You know, um, there's good fishing. If you're looking to do some fishing, so you have so you go ahead and make your mountains over there to the west, and then uh, that could be like the next session or something. Like they decide that they want to go to the mountains, or they meet they finish their quest there. They find that the water is drinkable. It isn't exactly completely clean, but it's drinkable. So then they would go back, or they go back, and then they might meet somebody who would then tell them, you know, oh, there's an item that I lost, and we were looking in the mine, and we were mining for silver, and we were chased out by some goblins, and I dropped, insert item, I dropped my wedding ring, or a map. We were making a map. The Cartographers Guild was making a map, and we were chased out. Or dwarven miners. We dug too far and found there was an entrance into the Underdark. However you want to play it. There's so many ways you could go with it. Okay, but basically, then they go off here and they go do that. Okay, that's like depending on the pacing of the group and how much they talk to NPCs in the town or whatnot. This dungeon itself could be 2 or 3 sessions just by itself, depending on how many encounters are there, or if you have people, you have role players in your party, and they wish to talk to NPCs. You could put NPCs in the dungeon also. It doesn't have to be straight fight, 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 because that'll get stale after a bit. But you could give them, and you could also give them exploration in the dungeon, hidden routes and things like that, things they may not encounter if they went straight through it. And so then they're more likely to branch out and discover more of the things that you put in there and then it kind of slows their pace down, so they don't just end up pulling one of these where they go from the starting town and they're like, all right, well, we're out of here. Like you want to give them things to do, and the more things they have to do, the longer they'll stay in this area, and then you can flesh it out. They'll end up going, okay, well, we want to go catch some fish. We don't really have money for rations and things like that, so we want to fish, or maybe they'll want to hunt. So then they're gonna go and they're gonna go hunt. The NPC that was over by by the little lake in the forest said they watch out for the bear. You know, there's bears, and so they go hunting for bears or deer or whatever. You know, make their survival checks, or you could play it out, and you know, whatever you want to do. But then, you know, so that this right here, this little bit of stuff right here, these four locations, you know, I could probably, you know, I could probably stretch out 12 sessions out of that, no problem. Um, but you know, so you don't have to go and create your entire world right off the bat. You know, you just want to have a starting location, and then if they're not really interested too much in the dungeons, they want to talk more to NPCs, but you still want to, you know, give them things to do. You know, you can have a quest board, and like it would give them, like, you know, random locations to go out and do these quests. You know, so you know, for old man Jacob's. You know, there's a wyvern, or there's a hungry wyvern outside of his barn trying to get to him, and you know, I don't know. Let's see. It's not really a barn, but it's like a custom asset I put in there. But so old man Jacobs is over there, and you know, this is like a quest board that's like outside the tavern or something like that. You know, so that gives them even more things to do. You know. There we go, farm. And then you know, over here, uh, old, you know, Lady Abernathy, she has an apple farm, but somebody's been sneaking around stealing her apples. Now she might go hungry for the winter time. You know, her fruit stores are going to be empty. And you need to go. They want you to go find out what's going on. So you get down, you know, you get down there, and you know, you find that there's goblins or something stealing apples at night, and you know, maybe you don't kill them off right off the bat, because that doesn't lead you to the food, right? So maybe you follow them, and then it leads you somewhere else. You find out that the goblins have their own little place inside the mountains there, and you know, so that's another place, and so you just keep building off of that, and then you know, after a while of doing that, you'll eventually get to you know, you'll eventually get to I'm going to get off of that now. You'll eventually get to the point where you do that enough, and you'll be able to create something like this. You know, if you do that in enough locations, you know, they'll be able to go from, you know, town to town and things like that, because you've done that enough times that you essentially created a whole world. And so there's that. That should be good enough for this video. Look forward to some of my other Dungeon Master videos I'll be making, and I plan on making some player videos too coming up on you know, new players, what the minimum they need, and you know, some basic rules that they can, you know, use to just, you know, get into the game and learn as they go. So look forward to those. Those will be two different series. You know, I'll have one for Dungeon Masters and then one for the players. I think I'll, you know, since my channel, it's Dungeons and Taverns. I think the one for the Dungeon Masters I'm gonna call Dungeons, and then the one for the players called Taverns, maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to think in my head if that sounds cool or not, or you know, that sounds corny. I don't know. Because I was actually planning on making a podcast and calling the podcast Taverns, but you know, I could think of different names. You know, I'm pretty good at thinking of names, and so, but you know, There we go. So hopefully you have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.